Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Princess Interrupted, the podcast. I'm your host, Allison Ziggy. I am joined by one of my favorite humans on planet Earth, Miss Cori Stuart of Cori Stuart Holistic Healing. And I will let Cori do the divine introduction, but this is someone who has been so special and near to dear in my heart in so many ways. This has been someone who I've been in a long distance friendship for so long, and I could just go on and say all the ways that being friends with Cori and experiencing her energy as a healer, and even she mentored me at points throughout the past. And I could literally fill this entire episode saying incredible things about Cori. I'm really excited to introduce you to this whole conversation and introduce you to one of my favorite people. So, Cori, say hello and introduce yourself.
Hello, hello. I am so honored to be here. For me, it is such an honor because I've known about Princess Interrupted before it was Princess Interrupted. It was a concept that you had, and now you've executed it into your full dream and helping others learn through it. I love the gift that you are sharing. So, super honored to be here.
You know, Cori, you bring up such a good point because you were the first person who I ever opened up about my story and my experiences to. And as we're recording this, it is Mental Health Awareness Month. And to have a friendship where I felt safe enough to bring all of me to the connection, that was something that hadn't always been safe. Didn't always have friendships like that. And it's worth noting what can happen in your life when you do open yourself up to be fully seen.
I felt so honored, and I still do, that you shared that because that is something you and I have had in similarity, that we've been very judged for the things that we've been through and the experiences that we've had. And it's amazing when we start surrendering into what opportunities are truly here for us, not against us, that we really can make the magic within ourselves and around ourselves too.
It's so beautiful to even think back about when we met. I was in Waxhaw with my dad, my Waxhaw, North Carolina origin story. And I had finally leaned into this idea of, all right, this is the direction I want to go. I want to build my business. I had finally started to rebuild after this storm of my life. And I remember meeting you, and we connected at some of these entrepreneurial events, but I feel like our friendship really grew and blossomed just over the path that we both started to take. I know your life changed a lot too. Would you like to share a little bit about your experience? I don't necessarily want to just summarize it as your career path, but even what a different place in life that you were in back then. This would have been 6 years at this point.
We both can say we survived my ex in some ways.
Yes. Your ex was my first coach, and it was not necessarily the best experience.
No, but the great thing is he did bring you and I together. 6 years ago, I was still developing the brand of Cori Stuart Holistic Healing. I was still figuring out who or what I was, and I was still working in finance. I was working my life path as a side hustle, if you will. Still living in the fear of I have a paycheck, so therefore I must stay with the paycheck. I was working as my own best client, quite frankly, in the finance industry. I went full time, finally getting to do what I'm really here on this earth to do a little over 2 years ago. It was quite a wild road in order for me to go from working part time and believing in myself part-time to believing in myself fully and empowering the great souls that I'm honored enough to work with as an anxiety reduction specialist.
And I met you and I got to experience your power through Reiki. And I had never really learned much about Reiki. I've since fallen in love with it and learned it myself. Was Reiki where it started for you?
Oh gosh, that is an excellent question. And truthfully, the answer is no. Although I am really known for being an anxiety reduction specialist who uses Reiki, which for those who might not know, Reiki is a Japanese energy balancing technique, which uses the intentional movement of energy. It can be done remote, it can be done in person. What first really brought me into this world was I was brought as a plus one to a mindset conference out in Vegas with probably 300 of your not close friends. That said, there was a gentleman on stage who was not only answering questions, but he was giving you the next question. It wasn't like your normal therapy appointment. It was more so, let's help you actually heal. Let's help you learn from your own story. And I was like, one, this doesn't happen outside of a therapy room. And two, even in a therapy room, they don't give you more homework. Like they just tell you to keep working on the same homework. This is
Right.
mind blowing. And it was through events that I started to meet phenomenal souls who do energy healing and who do healing work between our two ears and our physical selves as a full-time thing. It was earth-shattering to me that, wait, this is something that not only can I love and do as a passion project, but I can actually be very successful at this financially, intellectually, all of the things on that holistic level. That was now 11 years ago. And I'm super excited to continue studying and to continue sharing forward.
Bring up a really interesting point, and maybe my senses went up around it because I do focus on helping people with dating and relationships who are struggling in those areas. But you've mentioned this before in our conversations too about how pivotal it was for you to switch from being a plus one to basically taking your own seat at the table. And it seems like this experience for you, you might have made that transition in that room. Did that later carry on to your life? Is that how you feel like it happened?
Yes, it was that catalyst that helped me to realize that I could be capable of doing all these incredible things. I could trust myself. I could have my own career path. I could find a business partner or a life partner that not only tries to fill my cup, but decides and owns that they're a partnership with me. It was really stepping out of codependent relationships. And instead of looking for all that validation on the outside and from other people, it was a massive leap into the inside for myself that I haven't stopped yet.
Do you feel like that's transferred into what you've been able to create for yourself in your relationships now? Do you think that you have a different standard for yourself?
All of my professional and my personal life have definitely shifted on this. I came to realize that what I was really building was blowing in the wind and having to start over and over because I was looking to outside validation, whether it's my boss, my boyfriend, my parents, whoever it was. I was never looking at myself to help create my own structure, to start my own dreams, to start my own path. And now I'm really honored and having done all the work that I've done and continue to do to be able to share the tools and resources that have helped me with the great people around me.
Absolutely. You mentioned this anxiety reduction. That's what people really know you for. And from my own experience of working with you, that's been the case with us as well. We met in 2019 and we kept in touch definitely throughout 2020. But it was 2021 where I felt like I was at this really pivotal moment in my life. There was this really deep spiritual heartbreak, and I write about it in my book, but I couldn't move past it. And it felt spiritual, and I wasn't sure how to let it go. I finally decided I was ready, and I opened up to you. It's really hard to open up about these things that we're taught to have shame around, or things like you look at therapy, even while it has its shortcomings, it wasn't even necessarily socially acceptable from an early age. It used to be taboo to even go to therapy. I remember opening up to you about this, and that was when I started to experience changes. I remember going to Italy, and just through being in your energy and receiving the gifts that you had shared with me, I was able to create a different relationship to the anxiety that I had been so accustomed to feeling.
Yeah.
This anxiety was from this place of never trusting myself, never trusting my intuition. I was trying to walk a path that was different than the one that had been laid in front of me. It almost felt like walking through an electric fence, and that current was so difficult to shake from my body.
And it's amazing when we're cycle breakers, just how hard those initial steps are. It's not like an electric current for everybody, but that said, we all kind of go through our own muck or mud. There's a reason why there are those cliches of no mud, no lotus, or shed the things that no longer serve you in order for them to be fertilizer. As we continue to up level, some of the up level sheddings get to be easier. After I came back from one of my first mindset conferences, I lost my job where humorously they let me go because I was too different, but they hired me because they wanted somebody to think outside of the box. Which massive, massive blessing. I'm still very grateful that I'm not there. It's interesting the road that we lead and that we start tuning inward. And as we mentioned, it's mental health awareness. It used to be taboo to say, oh, I went to therapy, or I'm on medicine, or I'm trying different things in order to improve ourselves. That's one of the maybe good things that happened with the pandemic is it became more okay to say, I'm not okay.
It's absolutely true. I was really thinking about this hyper independence wound when you've had to rely on yourself for your entire life to survive. And when you start healing and you start facing these things and you can no longer hold it on your own and you need to rely on other people to get through it.
I know you and I are both animal people.
Go literally love Leo. He is like nestled up. I don't know that he's sat on my lap, except for when we did the animal communicator episode with Michelle. But
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
loves you.
He has been a leading gentleman in my life for several years now.
Has.
No offense to my boyfriend or my dog Stewie at home, but there are so many beautiful gifts that our animals can give us. And for 6 years, I had a beautiful beagle. Her name was Chloe, and she taught me so many lessons. One of the biggest is, yes, I can help you learn how to trust again. But most importantly, Mom, you've got to go trust another human. You've got to not only trust yourself, you've got to trust another human. Like, okay. That really brought my human relationships back to a different level. I'm very grateful for that. And it is amazing when we surrender into the different opportunities that are around us. What are the great little golden threads or golden nuggets that we have all around us?
It is interesting how our animals can come through to heal us and prepare us for our next relationships. And even the way, like Stewie is, I love that little guy. And Dolly, who you have now, you're really passionate about beagle rescues and also the work that you do. It seems so holistically woven into the way that you live your life.
Yeah. When we take the time to assess and what is something that I view as a non-negotiable, right? Like spending time with animals. What data are we intaking? Is it fiction? Is it self-help? Is it a combination? What foods? All the different things, they're what make us us. And there's no right or wrong. I'm not the beautiful cat lady that you are. Mika would be like, okay, give me back to my mom. But
He's clearly obsessed with you. Like, I don't know what kind of trance he is under right now, but he is like fully feeling the energy of whatever is transpiring on this conversation. You see?
wound inject. Yep.
He is soaking up every second of this interaction.
Like, I'm getting to be worshipped. We all deserve that. I'll always remember the first time I took Chloe to a dog park. She literally sat by herself, looked like the most deplorable, sad little pup you've ever did see. But every person would just walk up to her and be like, oh my gosh, you're the sweetest. I can't believe you're here by yourself. I'm like, this dog has goddess energy down to an art. She doesn't go begging. She doesn't go looking for it. She's having everybody come to her in her own terms and her own way. It's just that beautiful opportunity. When we get to stop being a plus one and when we start being more sovereign, that's where further magic can be. And I heard a quote the other day that sovereignty isn't selfish, it's sacred. Ooh, there's so much to that through most of my life. It was a word that was kind of taboo, kind of like therapy, like, oh,
Right.
sovereignty, that's kind of like selfish.
How do you define it?
Say sovereignty is when we feel comfortable standing on our own 2 feet and being in our own body and being in our own life.
I find it interesting too, like the distinction between sovereignty but being hyper independent, like learning to rely on others. I have a lot of experience with this too, as you know, like traveling by myself a lot. And I described it as how I learned to love myself, but it also feels like that was how I developed my sovereignty and learned in a microcosm what made me happy and who I wanted to be in the world. There's always a balance. And if you then say, I need to regimented do this by myself to find these things, I think that's where you need to kind of reel it back in, so to speak.
Yeah.
Do you find that balance difficult, the sovereignty versus the hyper independence, or what's the distinction in your mind?
As a recovering people pleaser who's also a Virgo who loves to do things her way and in her time, I will have a checklist like none other. And I've gotten to be much better about that. When I had it explained to me, when you tell people no, when they offer help, you're actually denying them their gift. It struck me in a whole different way because we are all given our own unique gifts. And when we remember the superpower is asking for help instead of doing it all on our own, it's something I check myself on fairly regularly. You can ask my boyfriend about that. There are times where, sure, it's still a struggle, but as I kindly remind my clients, if you're bold enough to ask for help, to me, that means you've put on your superhero cape. I'm not going to tell you no. I'm
Mm.
going to work with you the best I can in order to help you feel the best you can. Because when you put on your superhero cape, it creates a ripple. And we want to keep that ripple going for the positive as opposed to I'm having a no good, terrible day. We don't need that. We have enough of that.
It reminds me of the stigma of therapy, but then, so that's kind of like gone away. But then it's like this compartmentalized people wanting help, but not wanting to vent. This is where the sovereignty comes into play, is where you're able to rely on people around you without trauma dumping. How would you speak on that?
Building with trauma dumping, it's also not just staying stuck because
Right.
there's the concept of, yeah, I go to therapy. Great, but what are you doing with that? Are you shifting what you're learning into embodiment? I'm a huge fan of asking questions, and the better the question, the better the result, in my opinion. If you're going through stuff, I like having a checklist of the great people I have around me. If I know you're in the thick of something, I'm not going to reach out to you and be like, hey, I'm having my life blow up right now. I'm going to reach out to somebody else. So it's not a trauma dump and you're left even further down the hole than where you started. Does that make sense?
It reminds me of something that I heard from Gabby Bernstein, where she said, if you're ever feeling down, to call and try to help somebody else.
I am notorious with my clients of reaching out and being like, hey, just thinking of you. How are you doing? And they're like, how did you know I was having a no good, terrible day? Sister, I'm going through the same thing. How can we help build each other out of that mud? When we help take care of other people, when we're having those no good, terrible days, more often than not, we can pull ourselves up without ever having to do things. But in regards to trauma dumping, like I haven't seen it in a while, but I've got a pretty curated feed. I know for a while people were just crying on social media and being like, look at me, I'm working through my stuff. And I'm like, we don't really need that. What we really need are what are the tools you're using to help yourself get through? Yes, we need to cry. Yes, we need to sometimes scream it out. But what are we doing with the end results in order to keep ourselves building forward?
These things are going to come up. Things are going to rock you. And how you brought up the foundation that you had for yourself that was shaky versus the foundation that you have for yourself that is solid, is it's like you always will have yourself to a certain degree when you do this work on yourself. Yesterday, my mom was asking something and she said, are you okay? I had just been processing through writing. And I was like, wow, I owe it to myself not to say yes in this moment. I owe it to myself to be able to say, you know what? No, that wasn't necessarily proactively asking for help, but that was not pretending to be okay when I wasn't, when I was directly asked.
I know you do so much work when it comes to relationships. Most of us don't have a quote, quote, healthy example on how a
Mhm.
relationship with somebody else should go, let alone a healthy example of how a relationship with ourselves should go. And we can read, we can journal, we can do so many things, but it's really what happens in the real moments where you're aware that you're aware. And
Mhm.
how do we build forward for that? This is the first healthy relationship I've been in. We're a couple years in, but there are still times where I'm like, hold on, that response shouldn't be coming out of my mouth. So let me reframe my brain. Sometimes I'm great at actually catching it before it comes out of my mouth, and other times not so much. There's still a learning curve. And I just want people to understand that hopefully they can find the right complementary partner. So that partner isn't just like whatever, like they're like, "Oh, so what are you thinking? Like what trauma do you have that this conversation is stirring that up? Like let's work it through together." And I know that's something that you're excellent at, taking people to have a better understanding of themselves so they can have better ideas and concepts of what they're looking for in that ideal partner because they have their ideal self.
I do look back and think about the way that I used to feel when I was super anxious and how I was showing up in the world and how out of control that I felt. Relationships can help us work through those things, especially they're kind of like shadow work on steroids because anything that you're trying to hide is going to come up. Whenever I would enter a new relationship, I would get so anxious and I'd be like, Cori, tell me, like, is this gonna last? Is this gonna end? Like, what's gonna happen? And I would be so obsessed with knowing the outcome because of those undercurrents of anxiety that were running underneath. But it wasn't until I learned to address those that I actually started to attract healthier relationships where it was no longer trying to fortune tell. And as you're even explaining your relationship, it's not about that. It's becoming that unified front with someone and facing the challenges together and having the grace whenever you're not showing up as perfect. I think that's another thing is also like not expecting it to be perfect.
Now, even assess our self talk, right? More often than not, we're programmed to think negative thoughts. In reprogramming ourselves to better understand and like ourselves, and then we take that in the next level. We're then working with another individual who hopefully is working through the same kind of a concept of knowing, liking themselves much better. And you both have your own traumas and you're trying to grow. Hopefully, you're growing together instead of knocking each other out and being able to shift through those different traumas. That's where magic really gets to happen because it's a different level of trust.
What do you think it means to be sovereign in your relationships?
This is something that's perpetually evolving for me. So I really appreciate you asking that question. Being sovereign in your relationships is knowing and understanding who you are, what you have to offer, while also being respectful and open-minded to understand who your partner is, isn't ever going to 100% match who you are. There's no masculine, feminine duplicate of ourselves.
Gives me such chills to hear that.
It's having the open-mindedness to learn to understand who they are, how they work, and I am still a work in progress on this. It's not only being willing to understand who and where they are, it is also taking that information and being like, how do you guys build each other up instead of knock each other down? How do you guys build each other through the difficult things and then further celebrate the great?
With the process that you take clients through, the anxiety reduction and the sovereignty, are these the same process? Are these related? Are these different tools? Is the Reiki involved? I'm curious about how this all
Yeah.
comes together.
Sovereignty, self-trust, having a strong foundation. Those are the rudimentary absolutes of my practice, because if we're really looking to reduce our anxiety, bottom line, self-trust is very crucial. That's not always the easiest road, yet I absolutely love helping people with. In furthering anxiety reduction and developing sovereignty and creating your foundation, it's assessing what is the truth. Because most of the time we have a lot of junk that isn't even our own voice. It not only takes residence between our two ears, but it takes residence in our heart and our other major organs in our bodies, right? There's a reason why we have so many books anymore on the body keeps the score. That's the beautiful part of where energy work can come into play. Reiki can help shift things, balance things without having to necessarily talk them through. Instead of having to start at the same little circle or the same spot every time, we're able to dive in that next layer a little bit deeper and a little bit faster. When we combine in your truth, your data, your dream, your soul song, we can combine that with some physical activities. so we can start taking action in our life that's intentional. We're doing some embodiment exercises. So that way we've got this holistic, comprehensive, yet very practical way to be able to build ourselves onto a different path.
It seems like this is the blueprint for when you've been on a certain path and you no longer want to be on that path and you want to go to the other path, but you don't want to get shocked by the electric current.
As you've learned, as I've learned, when you have somebody helping you through that electric current, you're less likely to get shocked. It's still your road, you still have to do it, but it's so much easier and more beautiful when you've got somebody by your side helping you ask different questions, helping you try different things. So when you're in Italy, you can fully thrive or wherever you might be.
The way that I think about you, our connection, the work we've done together, our friendship in general, you really helped me even when I'm alone and even when I'm scared and even when I'm facing something. A lot of this came up with travel, even like I would go into this hotel room and be like, this place is so haunted, like help. And I would almost like send an energetic help and you would pick up on it somehow. But you showed me the power of energy and intention. And you helped me to realize I was never alone, regardless of where I went and regardless of how alone I felt. It was this sense of being able to feel well resourced regardless of what was happening externally.
That is one of my heart's goals is to help individuals to not feel alone, but more importantly, for you to feel like you have your own resources. I
Mhm.
love creating sacred containers in order of people to feel comfortable to let things go. But more so, I love helping other people have their own sacred container because I love you, but I want you outliving your
No, exactly. This isn't
you know?
codependent. It's not like I'm not alone because I can call Corey. It's like I'm not alone because I am able to use what I've learned through this person to get through this and to not be afraid of this challenge.
That's where life really gets to be life. When we're no longer feeling alone, when we're no longer feeling like we have to go to an outside resource, that's
Mhm.
where we can help draw in all those outside resources that are actually going to give you soul food.
You've created a program essentially around this that gives people the tools. Well, they'll have the support working through this, but then you enable them so that they have this transformation. Would you like to speak on that?
I would love to. I've created a 6-week program where we really work hand in hand in order for you to have a new foundation. It's called From Doubt to Sovereignty. We'll have a new cohort starting in June. We work together in order to help you have practical tools that no matter what life may bring, you have the capacity to be able to pivot, for you to be able to remain sovereign instead of being a tiki hut.
Mhm. That's
Yeah.
amazing. So we'll make sure to include details on that. This transformation has been something that I carry with me to this day. And it's something that I don't necessarily consciously think about, but it comes up for me when I am in those moments where I'm like in the pressure cooker of becoming that next version of myself. And I'm really being stretched and I'm really being asked to lean into faith over fear, is
Yeah.
really when this, for me, becomes the most evident. It's when you're hopping the electric fence to a different life, like a parallel life, a different expression of yourself.
Mhm.
And it's like how to transmute the current so that it doesn't feel like anxious energy in your body anymore. And you're able to ground it. Like you're able to send that anxious energy into the ground as opposed to like through your body where it's attacking. I used to feel like my body was physically attacking itself when I used to make changes to become the new version of me. I was so afraid.
There were some moments where your body did physically attack itself
I know.
in allergic reactions, and I know many of them.
On a solo trip. Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of the beautiful aspects of being energy trained as well. Reiki level 1 is all about self-care, and you can be anywhere in the world and use Reiki. To me, that's one of the other beautiful aspects to be able to share with others, is helping and doing Reiki trainings.
Absolutely. Reiki's really changed my life. I use it before every call. I use it all the time. And speaking about the animals again, because they seem to really be vibing
Thank
with the
you.
frequency of this, which means that this is definitely something that's really of the soul. My animals love Reiki, and it's one of the ways that I really connect to them when I'm not physically with them.
Yeah. That's one of the beautiful aspects of Reiki is it can be done by distance. I've worked with you while traveling or other individuals. Some of them I've never met before. And I know that I'm still able to work with them for their greatest good, whether, the situation be something light and fluffy or if it's transition work.
Yes, that's a really interesting
It's a whole
gift
nother
that you
podcast.
we'll have to do another podcast on that. But the one thing that you've really helped me with, it's funny how much it comes up during travel, but travel is such a representation of moving energy physically.
Mhm.
One of the biggest ways I've felt supported is the way that you help me with clearing my hotel rooms when I'm traveling. That for
Yeah.
me, like that's a service that I'm beyond grateful for because
Yeah.
there could be murky things that you're transmuting, and it's kind of like psychopomp work when you're traveling and you're clearing spaces. Because when you do enough work, you're like a sage stick walking through the world.
I know you have a great time helping with individuals and helping with their pets
Yeah.
and traveling. And you've gone all over the world. And we've been able to, no matter where you are, work with each other's energies. That's one of my favorite parts of working with people is it doesn't matter where you are so long as the intention and the embodiment is. That works for drawing in a partner. It works for drawing in the businesses that are aligned for you or with you. There's so many beautiful aspects that way.
One of the Reiki symbols also like transmutes time and space. And so
Yeah.
that learning that too, it just changes the way you look at reality. It changes the way you're able to interact with reality. And when you
Mhm.
have someone as powerful and energetically attuned as yourself supporting you through that, you really can't lose. I can't say enough good things about just having you in my life. I am beyond grateful for you because you've really increased my capacity to give and receive love. That's a huge part of being ready for a soul-filled relationship. And also, romantic love isn't the only virtuous kind of love out there. As I've come more into my capacity to give and receive platonic friendship love has also just been an experience of life that I've never had before. And you make me feel so grateful to be fully seen. And I love you so much. And I'm so grateful to have the pleasure of calling you one of my friends, but also to experience your energy in this capacity. And anybody would be lucky to work with you.
Yeah, thanks. For me, it's been an honor because watching you shift and further into your own, I know that the world needs as many light workers or love workers, however you want to, soulful people. The more of us there are, the better the energy of the earth is. So hopefully we'll have healthier, more soul-filled relationships, whether they're platonic, whether they're intimate, whether they're professional. And I think that's not a bad thing for the world.
Definitely not. How can people get in touch with you? How can people find you and connect with you after this episode?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's CoriStuart.com. I'm also very active on Instagram with Cori Stuart Holistic Healer. I do branch into YouTube. If anybody has questions, they're always welcome to send an email to Cori@CoriStuart.com.
Amazing. We'll include links to those resources that you can get in touch with Cori in the show notes. As she mentioned, she does distance sessions. She has an upcoming program that is launching and sounds absolutely incredible that gives you all of the support that helps giving me a really solid foundation for transforming out of a state of constant anxiety and into one where I just feel empowered and safe to be myself in the world. And that's absolutely invaluable. So thank you so much for joining us today, Cori. That was this week's episode of Princess Interrupted. Make sure like, subscribe, follow, and we will see you for the next one.